I know this episode of the Maverick Makers Podcast will fill your bucket as it did mine. Pattie Lovett-Reid is a highly respected Canadian financial expert known for her expertise in personal finance. Starting as a bank teller right out of high school, she climbed the ranks in the investment world, eventually serving as senior vice president at TD Waterhouse Canada. She later became the chief financial commentator at CTV News. Her ability to simplify complex financial concepts into practical advice quickly made her a respected figure in the industry. She continues to be a sought-after commentator and currently serves as the chief financial commentator at HomeEquity Bank. Lovett-Reid is a certified financial planner and co-author of national best-selling books. Let's go. I am thrilled to have Pattie Lovett-Reid on the show today. She is a financial commentator, but that's just one title. She is so much more. She's had an illustrious career and continues to, and I am so happy and grateful to have her on the show. Welcome, Pattie.
Michelle, you have to know how honored I am to be here. And I mean that sincerely. I've been following you for a while on LinkedIn. And then when you reached out to me, it was kind of like I kept commenting, is she ever going to call me? And then eventually you did. So thank you.
Oh, lovely. Well, I'm so glad this is happening and can't wait to talk to you. So let's start with the first question, which I ask often. When someone says the word maverick, who and what do you think of? What comes to mind?
Wow. I think of a stallion. I think of someone who is a leader. I think of someone who wants to take charge now. I think of someone who has a lot of strength. That's now who comes to mind. I mean, there are so many people. Leaders. But I have to tell you, Michelle, I don't go looking for the big name or whoever it is on front page news. I think you find the true mavericks, in my opinion. They're the people sitting next to you at an event. They're the ones that you listen to when they tell you their story, and you realize what they've had to overcome to get to where they are. And there's a certain humility about it as well.
Yeah, I love that. That's so true. People don't think about that maverick or that inspirational person might be your neighbor, might be just that person exactly right next to you. I love that.
And sometimes it's even, I will look at my husband in awe because in a conversation, he will say something that is maybe out of character. It's not where I thought he was going to go with it. And I think, there's great insight. It can be from one of my children. And you know what else? It doesn't fall into a demographic. I am sometimes computer challenged, as you might have recognized getting on. But when someone comes in and they'll say, hey, let me help you with that, that to me is such a leader because they have knowledge, but it's not enough to have knowledge. It's the importance of sharing that knowledge.
Absolutely. That's great. And tell us about your Maverick journey. So where and how did you start? And you've done so many things. So take us through it.
I started right out of high school. I did not go on to post-secondary education. I'm pretty sure I dropped math in grade 9. I think you could back then. Was not one of my strong suits. And my mother said, you have to pay rent. And I went, really? Like day one after graduating? And she said, yeah, like right away. And so with that in mind, I went to apply for a teller position in downtown Toronto, made it to an interview, and they were being robbed during the interview. And I remember at gunpoint, and you don't make this up, it was Bank of Montreal. And I stood there and I thought, well, I only have one nice outfit and I'm going to wait to be interviewed. And I know the police are going to be here and that everything happened. They said, we're not interviewing you today. And I said, oh no, I'll wait. I'm fine. I'll just sit over here till they finally said, please go home and come back Monday. It was a Friday. And I did for decades. No, maybe not decades, but definitely months. I thought I got the job because I was the best candidate. No, I was the only one that actually showed back up for the interview. So others were sort of scared off. But I do remember thinking that I wanted the next position from a teller. I wanted to go here, I wanted to go there. And I was hesitant to do so because I didn't have that degree until my husband said one day to me, "Get off your own coattails, Pattie. The only person holding you back is you."
Really?
And that was one of those moments where you think, really? I'm not sure. But then I started to believe it. And then things started to happen.
Wow. So dropped math, didn't finish. I just wanted didn't finish high school. Is that right?
Well, I do have a high school diploma.
Okay.
I'm very, very proud of that. I have grade 12.
Excellent.
Yes. I did have it. And I think I've received one honorary degree, of which, if I can tell you, when they told me, and I told my family, we have 4 adult children, they all have post-secondary. I came in, I said, I have the best news ever. And they thought I won $1 million. I said, I am getting an honorary degree. And they looked at me, and my family all said, well, you're not putting that on a resume. Listen, yes, I am. I worked 30 years for that degree. I am totally putting it on. But the funny part is, you know how you sort of rent, you borrow the cap and gown? They gave me, I was not taking it off. I wore it to dinner for the next week until finally everybody said, give it back, Mom. We're over it. But it meant so much to me. It did. It really meant a great deal. So, but can I tell you why I didn't go on to post-secondary?
Absolutely.
I didn't because in my career, I didn't know it at the time, but I didn't think I was smart enough because I'm dyslexic. And so by being dyslexic, it doesn't mean that I am not smart. It means that I had to learn differently, and I wasn't sure how to do it. And I'm not sure 100 years ago that I could have been diagnosed appropriately with it. Whereas today, I think there is help for so many like me that you may not learn this way, but you learn this way, and we can help you get to where you need to be.
I think this is such a powerful message, and absolutely. And you
Thank
don't
you.
have to have that. Absolutely. You don't have to have that conventional path, and you're the true example. No, exactly.
That's true.
So, right? So you look at dropping math to being a financial commentator. So it's like opportunity is limitless. And if you believe,
You can do it. Well, it's funny. Again, I've now mentioned my husband 3 times in this. Please, let's never tell him. But one of the gifts he gave me early on in our relationship, he did a little plaque for an office that I was working in. Trust me, I'm not sure it was entirely an office, but it said from Walt Disney, if you can dream it, you can do it. And I'm not going to say it's the best gift he's ever given me, because he's given me some pretty wonderful gifts, but it was probably one of the most profound, because to this day, I remember it and I still have it. I don't necessarily sort of have it out prominently displayed like I once did, but it's prominently displayed here because I do believe if you dream it, you can do it.
That's one of my favorite sayings, actually. So
Yeah.
I love it.
That's nice.
Yeah. So you went from the teller, then what happened?
Well, I can tell you, I went as high as you could in a clerical position, which was, if I recall back then, a level 6. And I was at an event, and I walked up to an executive at TD, and for some reason, in my bold manner, said, I want to be part of your management training program. And he looked at me and he said, all right, I'll follow up with you tomorrow. I think because no one else actually did that. And I did. And he did follow up with me. I'll never forget it, because he picked me up for an interview on his way to work in a stretch limo, which was also the very first time I was in a stretch limo. But anyway, that happened at TD, and I went there into the management training program. I did not feel I could progress further at Bank of Montreal. I didn't think I could get into management because of that lack of degree. Years later, I ran into executives from BMO, and they go, we don't really like when you tell that story, because we never said that. You imposed that on yourself. And I thought, I think there's so much truth there. There really is. No one from BMO, no executive ever said, we are not promoting you because you don't have a degree. But the important part out of that, Michelle, is that we can all have limiting beliefs. We can have a belief that we can't do this because of this, or we talk ourselves out of applying for a position because we don't think we have all of the qualifications. So I think sometimes getting out of your own way, dropping the limiting beliefs, and know that no one is perfect, no one has everything, and why not go for it? The worst that could happen is they would have said no, and I would have said okay, and probably moved on without a heartbeat.
Yeah, exactly. That's all you can do. So when
Right.
you were at TD, so you rose to the top at TD, then what's next? What happened next?
So I had been on the road for a decade speaking to our high valued clients in TD Wealth, and I loved it. Loved it. And then it moved into personal financial planners inviting me out to speak to their clients. But after a decade, I thought, what's next? How can I take sort of the knowledge that I've acquired to a larger platform? And so that is actually when I went the first time to BNN. It's now BNN Bloomberg. I started as the morning news anchor. This is how I found out that I was dyslexic, actually. I was reading a teleprompter and Mitsubishi came up in the teleprompter. Rather than saying Mitsubishi, I said Mrs., and it starts with an S, and it swears. I'm not sure we can swear here, but if we can, I said Mrs. Shitty on national television. The executive producer was in the control room. He then got into my ear and said, Pattie, there's a word with an F. What are you going to say next? I went, I'm not going to do that. But it's because things, I knew as soon as it came out of my mouth, it wasn't appropriate. I also did not get fired for it. But I also never, ever, ever used a teleprompter after that day. So I don't use a teleprompter, even when I did my own reporting, my own writing, which is why play to your strengths. I'm a big supporter of that. As much as I wanted to be an anchor, I like the title of anchor. I became chief financial commentator because I would look at the data, I would read the data, I would interpret the data, and I would report on it in my words and not someone else's.
Wow. So that's huge Maverick move. And that was my next question, which is, what do you think your biggest Maverick move has been? You've already sort of listed quite a few, but
the biggest Maverick move. I know. Oh, I can tell you exactly what it was. I had at CTV, when I was there, went into CTV from BNN, they said, we'd like to do the Pattie Lovett-Reid show. I remember my son saying, Mom, this is great, but your name's on it. If it doesn't work, you do realize what a spectacular fail that will feel like, because it'll Pattie Lovett-Reid and no more Pattie Lovett-Reid. Well, it didn't last a season because the money wasn't there, the whole story in TV. So I remember walking into my boss's office and he said, yeah, this isn't going to happen. And I said, okay. All right. So I'll take the new role of chief financial commentator. I'm not sure he was actually listening to me because it was just sort of, we're canceling the show, we're moving on. Anyway, I took that to assume, yeah, I'm going to be the chief financial commentator. So I think it was a couple of days later when the president actually saw me on news and said, who gave you that title? Truthfully, I guess I did, but I didn't. I said he did. But anyway, her line was amazing. She just looked at me and she goes, well, now you live up to it. And that was the end of it. So I think the boldest move is I sort of moved forward. I didn't really think I was doing anything wrong, but then I realized that I did it and then sort of was begging for forgiveness after the fact and moved into it. So I would love you to think that they decided I was going to be the chief financial commentator. What a great moment. No, it was self-identified.
But you made it happen.
I did make it happen, but that's because I had a very, very supportive team around me that said, yeah, okay, well, all right, you're going to do this. Okay, we didn't give it to you, but here we go.
Back to Walt Disney. So there you go.
And back to Walt Disney, right? Yeah.
That's
Yeah, well, I
amazing.
feel like I'm doing a lot of true confessions here. I'm in trouble. Yeah.
Love it. What advice do you have for someone who'd be interested in positioning themselves as an expert in a particular field?
I worry about the title of expert.
Mm.
I personally don't aspire to it because here's what I know. Um, there, I will give you the best I can on any given day. I will do my homework, I will do the research, and I will still trip and fall.
Mm.
And I think in order to really embrace that kind of title, it is years and years of preparation, years and years of hard work. It's learning. It's lifelong learning. It's getting excited about your passion. It's playing to your strengths. I know people will say, focus in on your weaknesses and get better. No, I will focus in on what I know I'm really good at and continue to get better and better at it. The areas, my weakness, like I don't cook, I've never cooked. I'm surprised my children made it to adulthood. They did with a lot of help. I'm never going to be good in the kitchen. I've accepted it. I've moved on. So, and follow that passion, if I didn't already say that.
I love it. Now, if I could take those words and convince my husband that's okay.
You know what? I really embrace it and I even play it further. If you ask my husband, I have probably in 30 years of marriage been in the grocery store 5 times, if that. He goes, I don't really like going in the grocery store, Patty, but I have to solve the problem. We have to eat. And I go, I'm so happy you're such a great problem solver. And he is. And he does the grocery shopping, all of it.
I love it. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So good. Do you believe there are limits in career and life, or are things limitless?
Oh, I am the eternal optimist.
Huh?
I will always be an optimistic person. My nickname at times is Oppie for optimistic. That's what they call me. You're Miss Oppie, and I'm going, well, come on. I believe the next big thing is always right around the corner.
You.
When I retired, and it was my decision to retire from CTV, for the first time in my life, and I believe in the philosophy of retiring to something,
Yeah.
whether I retired from BMO, I was retiring to TD, to CTV. But this was the very first time in my life where I thought I'm actually retiring to retirement, which means to become reclusive and disappear. And that's not what I really had on my agenda. But I was extremely optimistic. The next big thing was right around the corner. I just needed to be open to it and willing to try it. I know I am on Instagram. I am on LinkedIn, or just getting up to speed on LinkedIn. All of my job opportunities have come since the so-called retirement from Instagram. It is not just about pretty pictures, although I'd like to think some of them are pretty, especially with my grandchildren in them. But it's about how you position yourself. And so one of my roles right now is the chief financial commentator for HomeEquity Bank. And they reached out 2 days after I retired and said, we've got an offer for you. Are you interested? I said, no. And they said, yeah, you are. And I went, okay, well, let's talk about it. Several others have come that way. So if you're not on social media, you need to be on social media. I would also say 3 job offers recently came about via LinkedIn. And so for the first time in my life, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a small business owner. I'm very proud of that.
You should be. That's amazing. And I think it's fantastic that you went from intrapreneur to entrepreneur.
Right. Yeah. Because
Right.
you know what? Honestly, Michelle, I've always felt I had an entrepreneurial spirit, although I was in a corporate environment. They never knew quite what to do with me. And I will tell you, it worked well, but it could have backfired. One is in terms of networking, I am a big fan of networking, not what can you give to me, but what can I give to you? How can I help you? And I think I did a great job networking with the media because opportunities came my way. I was horrible at networking within the corporate environment. So when I was sort of progressing, I didn't have that big sponsor at the top that would say, you're going to be really good for this, or you could do that, or let's develop you to go in this direction. No, I just didn't do it. I just sort of kept my head down, did the work I did, but networked externally. And I think, there could have been, it's not an either or, it's an and. You need to do both.
And what are you most passionate about?
Helping Canadians with their finances in a way that it's sort of news you can use. Here's what I would do when I write blogs or when I go on air or whenever I'm talking to people about it. If I read back something or if I watch myself, and I don't watch myself often, but sometimes you come on the evening news and you're there. And I have caught myself at the end of an interview looking at myself going, so what? Like, so what? Like, what did you just tell me? But more importantly, what can I do with what you just told me? And if my answer to my own answer on TV is nothing came out of that, then that it's so much more than that. You have to want to help people genuinely, and by doing that, it's making sure you're answering the questions in a way that people can take it and translate it into their lives.
Interesting.
Did that make sense? Or
Yeah.
so what? No.
And why do you think people are so afraid of money or finances?
I think because there's a lot of comparison out there. There can be some embarrassment around it. People will say to me, you could have, for example, two 35-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds, and you think they're at exactly the same stage. They've got the same educational background. They're doing roughly the same job. They should be at the same stage financially in life. No, because you don't know the backstory on someone. You don't know if they've had financial hiccups in their life, detours, speed bumps, whatever it is. People deserve their own plan, and they deserve to know that it's not carved in stone. Like, life has a way of throwing you a curveball. And when it happens, it can be to the upside and you hit a home run, or it can hold you back for a bit, but that's okay. None of this, I just think that people find it a lot more complicated and complex than it needs to be. And if I can sort of figure it out, I know everybody can.
Great answer. Amazing. Are you ready for the lightning round?
Okay, here we go.
Okay. Night or day?
Oh, day, 100%. I've never even seen 8 o'clock at night.
Fair. Inspiration or impact?
This is the lightning round. I'm going to say inspiration. Knowing my way, yeah. I'd rather be, inspirational versus impactful. Okay, that was tough.
Food or sleep?
Sleep, 100%.
Favorite place on earth?
A favorite, I'm going to say it again. This is all I talk about is my husband. By his side, wherever he is. I want to travel with him. I want to do things with him. I don't fall in love with assets. I don't fall in love with our homes. I'm in love with him. So I want to do things with him. That's my favorite place.
Beautiful. That's awesome. Favorite era?
The era I'm in. Okay, so honestly, I don't know if you wanted explanations, but I don't look back. I don't look forward. I honestly live in the moment right now. Like, it's always right now. Like, my children will say to me, Mom, way back when you had children, because they're having children, and did you, I don't know, I can't remember. No, but let's deal with what's going on right now. And there is some truth to that. It's like, okay, that was then, this is now, let's move forward.
Makes sense. And it's the way you should be living. So that's great. What's your legacy?
Oh, my legacy is that I hope people will think that I was kind, that I genuinely cared, and I was inclusive.
Beautiful. What can people learn from you?
that it's okay to trip, to fall.
Mm.
It doesn't matter how many times you fall. It doesn't matter how many times you don't get the job that you hoped for, the profile that you wanted. I think in life, as you've heard the expression, it's not about falling, it's about how you get back up off the mat. And I have fallen, I'll continue to fall, but I do get back up. And that's from my mother. Can I leave you my mother's message though? She
Yeah.
has always said to me when I would say, I'm bored. And she would look at me and go, yeah, I know, because only the boring are bored. Isn't that fascinating?
I am so using that on my 9-year-old.
You can totally use it on your 9-year-old because I have never forgotten it. Mom is 91.
Wow.
And she once said to me not long ago, she said, oh, it's been a boring day. And I went, oh, please give me the opportunity. And she said, don't you dare. I know where you're going. And I said, okay, I'll give you a free spot this time. Yeah.
Love it. How do you want to change the world?
Well, it goes back, like I'm being really trying to be reflective on this. I want it to be a lot kinder. I want it to be a lot more inclusive. And I think I'll stop there because I think if we started there, a lot of the other challenges, would evaporate. I'll go back to a simplistic rule. Even on social media, you really don't know someone else. And how do you entirely get inside them? And so I think if you lead with kindness, you stand a better chance of understanding their perspective. And I think that's sometimes lost in today's environment.
You're totally right. Last question.
Okay.
What's next?
What's next? I don't know what's next, but there will be a what's next. And that's because this is from my father. He said, Pattie, do not let life become a series of takeaways. There will come a time in your life when you once did one thing. I used to run marathons. Okay, I ran one, so I can say I ran a marathon, but my feet never fully recovered from it. So I moved on to other sports. And he said, that's fine, but you've got to replace it with something else. And so I believe that I always want to be engaged. I'm not sure I'll ever retire. If I can help just one person and no one will have me on a platform like this, I'll create my own platform and I'll do it. So the next big thing's around the corner. Who knows? You know what, Michelle? Somebody could watch this and say, you know what? I'm going to reach out to her and let's see what we can do, because you just don't know. You got to be open to it. I never turn down a request from anyone who will say to me, can I just get a few minutes of your time? Because it's not about me. It's because someone had the courage to reach out, to ask. And I find that quite an honor.
Wow. You are an inspiration.
Oh,
Thank
thanks.
you for this conversation. It lifted me up. I know that everyone listening is going to be so impacted by your words and your wisdom and your experience. So thank you so much. And yes, I can't wait to see what's next.
We'll stay in touch.
The Maverick Makers Podcast is sponsored by Maverick Makers Content Creation Collective. We fuel your content pipeline through video, photography, design, and editorial. Let's connect to your audiences and make more sales. Learn more at maverickmakersco.com.